Hey guys, tonight we're traveling somewhere that feels both ancient and oddly peaceful. The windswept lava plains of medieval Iceland. Imagine standing at Thingvellir, the great assembly plain, where basalt cliffs cradle a rift between continents and the midnight sun barely dips below the horizon. Mist rises from fissures, breath mingles with it, and every word echoes off stone. You're not here for a feast or festival, though. You're here to learn how this quiet land managed to keep order without kings, police, or prisons. And, fair warning, you probably wouldn't survive its version of justice. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're listening from, so drop your location and local time in the comments. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand among cloaked figures gathered in the chill dawn. The law rock rises before you, a natural pulpit where the Luxsögumaður, the law speaker, unrolls memory like a scroll made of sound. He recites every clause of the Grágás, Iceland's Grey Goose Law Code, entirely from memory. There are no books yet, just human recall, and the occasional icy silence when a clause is forgotten and the crowd shifts its weight. Beneath your boots, moss clings to lava stone. Around you, 1,000 farmers and traders murmur, settle disputes, and sip cold whey from horn cups. The air smells of fish, wool grease, and peat smoke. There's a strange calm here. No gallows looming, no shackled prisoners waiting judgment. Iceland's early settlers believed punishment shouldn't just hurt, it should restore balance, like fixing a crack in sea ice before it widens. Justice was a community project, part courtroom, part therapy session, and sometimes part theater. Someone nearby whispers about outlawry, the ultimate penalty, and you catch a shiver that isn't from the wind. Instead of execution, a condemned person simply becomes útlager, legally non-existent. Anyone can kill them, but few bother. The real punishment is being ignored by everyone you've ever known. No home, no trade, no welcome at hearth or farm. It's a slow fade from memory, harsher than any dungeon. And yet this gathering isn't grim. It's practical. You watch as men and women trade cattle to settle blood feuds, argue over grazing lines, or accuse each other of stealing driftwood. The fines might sound absurd. 3 marks for a broken nose, 12 for a life. But in a place where everyone depends on everyone else, silver is kinder than swords. A traveler from Norway jokes that the island feels like a family constantly in mediation. He's not wrong. Every summer, at this same plain, all free people come to air grievances, gossip, and drink together while pretending to hate each other. It's democracy run on goat cheese and grudges. Historians still argue whether Iceland's lack of a king made it freer or just more exhausting. Some call it the first experiment in stateless law, others a slow-motion feud with paperwork. You notice that justice here feels deeply personal, less about crime, more about keeping the social fabric from tearing. As the law speaker's voice carries over the valley, ravens circle above the ridge, croaking approval or maybe dissent. You realize the punishments you'll hear tonight won't always make sense to modern minds. Some will sound merciful, others ridiculous, and a few downright poetic. But they all belong to a world where survival depended on cooperation, and where the worst fate wasn't death, but exile from belonging. You pull your cloak tighter, the basalt beneath you cold as memory. Someone shouts the next case. An insult carved into a fishbone, a feud rekindled by verse. The crowd hushes, the law speaker clears his throat, and you feel the island itself lean in to listen. The night of medieval justice has begun. You stand at Thingvellir as the morning haze thins into bright Nordic daylight. The assembly ground hums with activity, farmers hammering tent pegs, traders arranging sealskin bundles, and messengers jogging between booths with rolled parchments tucked into their belts. You're beginning to realize something strange. This society runs without a king, without soldiers, without even a single prison wall in sight. And yet, it works somehow. In medieval Iceland, law was memory woven into speech. The Althing, their great yearly gathering, wasn't just a meeting, it was the spine of the nation. Every freeman could attend. Every dispute could, in theory, be aired before everyone else. You wander between clusters of people debating boundaries and inheritance. Their arguments carried on the crisp air like snippets of saga verse. One man swears by Thor's hammer, another quotes scripture. Nobody seems to mind that they mix old gods and new faith, so long as the contract holds. The law speaker, perched again atop the law rock, acts as both archive and referee. His voice, low but firm, unrolls rules that govern everything from homicide to haymaking. You can almost feel the collective brainpower required to keep this society from collapsing. Iceland had no king until 1262, when exhaustion finally drove them under Norwegian rule. Until then, law replaced monarchy, consensus replaced armies. A man's honor was his currency, his oath the only armor he could truly afford. You watch a Godi, a local chieftain, stride past, his cloak hemmed in bright red wool. He's not a noble in the European sense. He's more like a mix of lawyer, priest, and political influencer, maintaining a network of loyal farmers who trust him to represent them at the Althing. In return, he collects small fees and endless favors. If you squint, you can almost see a primitive version of parliamentary politics taking shape, minus microphones plus sheep. The quirky bit? Historians still argue whether Iceland's Godar actually cared about justice or just about saving face. Some scholars say they were visionaries who built the earliest republic. Others call them saga-age PR managers, performing righteousness while protecting their clans. You can imagine their meetings, heated, witty, always dangerously close to a brawl. Nearby, two men argue about a border stream that keeps shifting with the spring floods. No judge sits between them, just a handful of mediators quoting clauses from memory. You catch fragments. If the stream changes its bed by no more than 3 Ls, and both nod solemnly as if this is divine revelation, the dispute ends not with punishment, but with a handshake and a recalculated fence line. It feels less like law enforcement and more like emotional weather forecasting, trying to prevent next season's storm. Still, there are penalties. If you ignore a ruling or refuse to pay a fine, your name gets sung in public, your shame passed around like gossip over ale. Reputation is everything here. One lost case can ruin your trading prospects, your marriage offers, your friendships. You begin to see how social pressure replaces steel bars. In a land this small, invisibility is the harshest sell. A woman carrying smoked lamb passes you a slice. We keep peace because the land is too cold for war, she jokes. And maybe that's the truest thing anyone said tonight. Iceland's unforgiving nature makes cooperation a necessity. Even vengeance must obey the weather. And yet, under the laughter and trading, you sense the system's fragility. Without a central power, everything depends on personal honor. And honor, as you know, can be a fickle beast. One insult too sharp, one verdict too biased, and feuds can spiral for generations. As dusk paints the lava fields gold, the crowd gathers for one final announcement of the day. The law speaker calls out, "Those exiled for the next 3 winners, step forward." A few men do. No guards escort them, no shackles clink. They simply nod, pack their cloaks, and begin walking toward the horizon. Justice here is enforced by belief alone. The crowd disperses. Someone starts playing a low tune on a bone flute. You realize that, for all its strangeness, this system might be more civilized than most empires of its time. No king, no whip, just people, memory, and a shared agreement to stay human in a world that easily forgets how. The next morning dawns pale and silver, the kind of light that never quite decides whether it's sunrise or fog. You're standing near a ridge where the wind hums through cracks in the lava rock like a ghostly flute. A small group gathers around a man accused of killing another during a drunken quarrel. No one draws a sword. No one prepares a gallows. Instead, the goatee announces something that sounds deceptively gentle. Full outlawry. You blink. That's it. No execution, no chains, just words and silence. But in medieval Iceland, words could erase a life. To be declared útlagur, an outlaw, was to become invisible by decree. You lose every protection of the law. Anyone can rob or kill you without consequence, yet most simply turn away when they see you. The world itself unknits around you. The man accepts it quietly. He ties his cloak tighter and steps back into the gray mist, heading toward the mountains. You watch him shrink to a speck between snowfields and wonder what kind of courage it takes to keep walking when your name no longer belongs anywhere. There was also lesser outlawry, a kind of probationary exile, 3 winters away from home, after which you might return if you'd behaved or survived. The Icelandic idea was that punishment should remove danger, not end life. It was pragmatic, almost eco-friendly justice. Instead of wasting effort on prisons or graves, they let nature take over. Cold, hunger, and loneliness handled the rest. Historians still argue whether outlawry was merciful or cruel. Some call it humane, death by slow forgetting instead of violence. Others see it as psychological torture, a sentence to wander a world that pretends you don't exist. You can almost feel the ache of that silence. Imagine walking into a village you grew up in and watching every face turn away. No greetings, no offers of food, not even a glance. It's the medieval version of being unfriended by an entire country. The sagas are filled with such figures, men living in caves, stealing sheep, haunting valleys like half-remembered ghosts. Some became legends. Grettir the Strong, for instance, survived as an outlaw for nearly 20 years, fighting spirits, bandits, and boredom in equal measure. When they finally caught him, it wasn't the law that killed him, but superstition. Even exiles here have mythic careers. You wander closer to the assembly's edge where a group of women trade butter and gossip. One of them mutters, "Better 3 winters gone than 1 grave dug." That's the Icelandic spirit in a nutshell. Punishment should sting, not splatter. It should restore balance rather than bloodshed. In a society of a few thousand souls, every person lost was a gap in the survival network. Too much killing, and the island itself might starve. A quirky detail, the punishment sometimes extended to livestock. A murderer's cow might be declared útlagur, its hide branded with a mark of shame. Killing that animal became a symbolic act of cleansing, like deleting bad code from a communal system. Imagine having to execute your cow because it shared your legal status. Only in Iceland could justice and animal husbandry intertwine so neatly. At dusk, you follow a path toward the fjord where the exiles disappear. The cliffs glow with soft copper light, and seabirds wheel overhead. You think about how this landscape itself enforces morality. No need for iron bars when the wilderness can finish the sentence. But you can't help noticing the hypocrisy. Wealthy offenders often bought their way out of outlawry through strategic marriages or fines disguised as gifts. It turns out even in the world's most democratic medieval society, influence still bends the rules. Some historians argue that outlawry wasn't a punishment of justice, but of class, easier to exile the poor than inconvenience the powerful. Sound familiar? The night closes in, smoke from distant hearths drifts through the chill, and you realize how precious community warmth must have felt. In a world built on shared survival, the cruelest thing was not pain, it was solitude. You wrap your cloak tighter and glance back toward the assembly, where another verdict echoes over the plain. Somewhere out there, a man walks into darkness, carrying the only punishment Iceland could truly afford: forgetting. You wake to the sound of sheep, bells, and distant chatter. The assembly plain has turned into a bustling market again. Tent flaps open, smoke curling from cooking fires, and people swapping everything from carved spoons to slabs of whale meat. This morning, though, the talk isn't about exiles or outlaws. It's about money, or rather what passes for it. You watch as two farmers settle a dispute over a collapsed sheep pen. No coins jingle between them. Instead, one offers 3 measures of butter, a bolt of homespun wool, and a promise to fix the fence before next spring. The other nods. Case closed. Justice by dairy. In medieval Iceland, fines weren't just a way to avoid violence. They were the glue that kept society together. The law called them batur, literally repayments. A wrong wasn't erased by punishment, but by compensation. Break someone's arm, pay in silver, burn their haystack, pay in butter, insult their honor, that'll cost you livestock. It's less eye for an eye and more cow for a bruise. You overhear the law speaker reciting tariffs for various injuries. For a wound that draws blood, 1 mark. For an ear severed, 4. For a killing, 3 times 12 ounces of silver. You can't help but smirk. Somewhere in that crowd, someone's keeping mental notes like a medieval insurance adjuster. Historians still argue whether Icelandic fines reflected fairness or simple practicality. Some say it was moral. Compensation repairs relationships, not just bodies. Others claim it was economic. Killing a neighbor is bad for the workforce. Either way, the system worked remarkably well for centuries. The quirky detail? The fines could be paid in nearly anything of value. Silver was preferred, but in a land where coinage was scarce, people got creative. Butter, cloth, even imported falcons occasionally changed hands as legal tender. There's a record of one man paying his fine in dried fish, meticulously counted to the ounce. Somewhere in that arithmetic of justice, an accountant's heart must have fluttered. And yet this system demanded trust. If someone refused to pay, the burden fell to their family, then their allies, and eventually to their godi. It was justice by network. Like a medieval blockchain, every transaction verified by social proof rather than signature. Fail to uphold your end, and the whole web might turn against you. You follow a merchant who's proudly showing off his ell of homespun cloth, the measure used for trade and fines alike. Iceland's laws even dictated the quality. Uneven weave, worth less. Stale butter, discounted. Cheating on your fine payment wasn't just dishonest, it was sacrilege against the shared code of survival. Still, loopholes existed. Wealthier farmers could pay off blood debts faster, turning what should have been moral atonement into a financial convenience. One saga tells of a chieftain who committed manslaughter and settled it by paying in half-melted silver. Technically valid, morally questionable. His victim's kin accepted anyway. A reminder that even in the land of integrity, inflation happens. You wander toward a stall where a widow, her gray hair plaited neatly, is accepting payment for a legal claim. A young man killed her husband's prized ox. She's taking compensation in the form of milk cows. The law feeds me better than he ever did, she jokes, and the crowd laughs gently. The humor hides something profound. In this culture, law wasn't about revenge. It was about maintaining the circle. Every fine paid was another stitch holding the fragile fabric of peace together. Without it, feud and famine would rip everything apart. As the sun dips, a voice calls across the plain, "Let all who owe Badr pay before midsummer's end." It's part command, part prayer. The crowd answers with a murmur of assent, and you realize that here, justice isn't blind. It's balanced on the scales of necessity. You take a breath. The air tastes faintly of salt and butter, justice and smoke. Somehow it all makes sense. Iceland didn't need gallows. It had community, economy, and an unspoken rule that peace was cheaper than pride. The following day, the valley is quieter. No shouting, no trading, just the low hum of voices carried on wind that smells of moss and distant sea. It's truce week, one of those rare intervals when Iceland's law demanded that everyone stop fighting, arguing, or even insulting each other long enough to hold the outing in peace. You walk through the crowd, feeling the strange stillness of a people trying, by collective willpower, not to punch anyone for 7 days straight. The concept of settlement was everything here. Icelanders didn't want to live in a world of endless revenge. They simply had to keep one from starting. So the law required that even enemies sit together, talk, and exchange what they called setir, settlements often sealed by silver, a handshake, or a shared drink. It's as if the whole society decided, fine, we'll argue like civilized farmers until the weather gets bad again. You overhear a mediator coaxing two families through a decades-old feud over grazing land. One man spits, another sighs, but eventually they agree to split the pasture by the middle boulder where the raven nests. The decision feels almost poetic, and you realize how deeply this culture trusted symbols. Even rocks had legal meaning, a quirky tidbit. Sometimes, instead of paying a fine, offenders were required to host a feast for their victims' kin. Imagine making amends by roasting 50 sheep and praying everyone enjoys the stew enough to forgive you. It was social repair through hospitality, and also, conveniently, a way to turn vengeance into dinner. Historians still argue whether these truces were sincere or just strategic pauses. Some think Icelanders truly valued peace. Others believe they simply recognized that killing your neighbor in summer made haymaking awkward. Either way, the Althing turned enmity into negotiation with surprising success. You sit near a circle of men reciting oath verses, formal poems used to frame agreements. Their words weave law and poetry together, syllables counting like coins. In this world, words aren't just decoration, they create reality. To speak falsely under oath was to invite spiritual disaster. People believed that lying during a truce could summon storms or sink ships. In a country of fishermen and farmers, that superstition was a better deterrent than any constable. Later, at a makeshift booth built from driftwood, you watch as two women argue a marriage dispute. Their mediator, an elderly widow, quotes the law from memory, pauses, then adds her own advice. "Better lose a husband than lose your sleep." The crowd laughs softly. Justice here always comes with humor. Laughter breaks tension faster than a sword ever could. Nearby, a man accused of stealing a cow stands before the assembly. Instead of punishment, the law requires him to pay double the animal's value and make a public apology. He kneels, mutters his guilt, and hands over a rope tethered to two plump cows. The owner pats his shoulder, forgiving but smug. The watching crowd nods in approval. It's not about humiliation, but restoration. The mediators call this process gjöf sem betir, a gift that mends. It's such a beautiful idea. Every wrong leaves a hole, and every settlement is a stitch. Icelandic justice wasn't about striking back. It was about sewing the world whole again before winter came. As the evening mist rolls in, people light small fires around the booths. From where you stand, the flames look like stars fallen to earth. Someone begins to sing an old verse about peace between farms, and for a moment, the assembly becomes something sacred. Part legal system, part family reunion, part spiritual renewal. You sip sour whey and feel oddly content. For all the grudges and fines, this community has mastered something rare: the art of pausing hate. Maybe that's the secret of survival on this frozen island. Not strength, not law, but the yearly reminder that nobody wins if everyone's angry. You pull your cloak tighter and glance toward the horizon, where pale light stretches over moss-green hills. Somewhere out there, winter is already stirring, and peace, fragile, temporary, but real, has been bought for another season. Morning fog hugs the Rift Valley like a slow-moving sea. The air feels thick, and your breath curls into mist that looks suspiciously like gossip. That's fitting, because today's cases are all about insults, the kind that wound pride deeper than blades. You follow the crowd to a tall pole planted in the earth beside the law rock. It's carved with runes and topped with a grotesque wooden head, a nidstong, or shame pole. Someone erected it last night, and everyone's buzzing about who it's aimed at. The wooden face glares toward a farm down the valley, its tongue jutting out like mockery frozen in oak. In medieval Iceland, words were weapons. A sharp insult could destroy a man standing faster than any crime. To call someone cowardly, effeminate, or unfree was to invite a lawsuit or a duel. You could sue for defamation, and yes, the law listed categories: direct insult, poetic insult, and symbolic insult. That last one included carving curse poles, engraving lewd verses on driftwood, or singing songs that made others snicker when the victim walked by. Historians still argue whether Icelanders truly feared words or simply respected them as a kind of magic. Some think the culture's obsession with poetry made slander lethal. Others say it was just the medieval version of online reputation damage. Either way, a verse could ruin you. You watch as the accused, a red-bearded farmer, defends himself. He insists the pole wasn't his doing, though his smirk suggests otherwise. The insult accuses his neighbor of harboring troll blood, which in this superstitious age is half a joke and half a hex. The crowd titters, the law speaker frowns, and the case begins. The rules are precise. If the accused can't prove innocence or retract the insult publicly, he owes full compensation. Sometimes that means silver, sometimes livestock, sometimes the indignity of composing an apology poem that everyone must hear. The quirky bit? Some defendants took pride in paying the fine. It confirmed their insult was memorable enough to matter. One saga hero famously paid triple the amount just to make sure the verse was never forgotten. You can't help but smile. Medieval Icelanders invented the concept of the viral burn. Still, there's real danger beneath the humor. Feuds have started over insults, and some have ended in outlawry. You hear whispers about a man who once carved a shame pole so offensive that a neighboring farm abandoned their land entirely, believing it cursed. Archaeologists still debate whether those poles existed in the numbers the sagas suggest, but fragments of carved heads have turned up in peat bogs, mute witnesses to a society that took ridicule seriously. You move through the crowd as the law speaker announces the verdict. The pole must be burned, and the offender fined 12 ounces of silver, half to the victim, half to the law council. A scribe records the details, and just like that, the feud is legally extinguished, but not emotionally. Later that night, by a fire pit, you overhear laughter as the same farmer mutters a new rhyme under his breath, quieter this time. You realize that Icelandic justice was less about perfection and more about containment, keeping the flames of pride from consuming the whole plain. A woman beside you explains softly, "We cannot stop tongues, only measure them." It's a line so elegant it could be in a saga. You imagine generations of poets using their words as both sword and shield, knowing that every clever phrase might cost them a cow. You lie back on the moss, staring at a sky so bright with stars it looks like frost scattered across black silk. Somewhere in the darkness, another insult is already forming, another verse waiting to be sung. And you can't help thinking, maybe a world that sues over poetry is saner than one that kills over silence. A pale sun slides across the sky like a lantern behind clouds. You follow a column of farmers leading a man toward the open square where the Godar hold court. His hands aren't bound. He walks calmly, his head bowed. His crime, theft by night, one of the most serious breaches of Icelandic honor. In this society, stealing wasn't just taking property, it was tearing at the fragile web of trust that kept everyone alive through the winter. If someone steals your food in January, you don't just lose supper, you might lose spring. That's why the law draws a sharp line. Theft by day can be confessed and compensated, but theft by night means shame, double restitution, and sometimes outlawry. The crowd forms a loose ring as the accused explains himself. He took dried fish, he says, from a storehouse on the fjord. His family was starving. The law speaker listens, frowning. Justice here is never blind. It squints, weighing hunger against honor. The man's neighbor confirms the theft, but admits he would have shared if asked. The murmurs soften. Icelandic law bends more easily than ice, but only just. In the end, the thief must pay back twice what he stole. Tvöfaldar batter, no prison, no whipping, just a debt of food and humility. And to seal the settlement, the offender must stand before the crowd and speak his apology aloud. The air feels thick with tension as he says, "My hunger was loud, but not honest. Let me feed you next summer to mend this winter." A strange phrase, half confession, half poetry. The crowd nods. Historians still argue whether these public apologies were more psychological than legal. Some call them ritual restorations, performances meant to cleanse shame through words. Others see them as practical PR. Either way, the act works. By making guilt visible, the community transforms it into responsibility. You can almost admire the efficiency. No guards, no paperwork, no wasted lives. Just restitution. Pay what you took, say what you mean, and carry on. Iceland's law was like its landscape, harsh but fair enough to survive in. A quirky detail: thieves caught in the act at night could legally be killed, but if captured afterward, they were spared. The idea was that darkness itself carried danger. If you risked confronting a thief by lamplight, the law already considered it deadly combat. Some scholars think this rule came from old pagan beliefs that night was sacred territory belonging to unseen spirits. Interfering with it brought bad luck. You wander down to the shoreline later, where traders weigh silver rings and smoked cod on balance scales. A woman tells you that even fish markets follow the same code: honesty first, fairness second, profit third. Theft, she says, is for people who've forgotten winter. You smile, realizing that in Iceland, morality is simply another survival skill. In the afternoon, you watch a group of boys reenact the theft case for fun. One plays the thief, one the lawman, and one the hungry wife weeping beside a pretend fire. Their laughter rings across the field. Even children here understand the script. Everyone slips, everyone pays, everyone gets forgiven eventually. And yet you can sense the cracks. Some crimes never quite wash clean. You hear of a farmer whose barn was burned by men claiming to avenge a theft from years before. Justice travels slowly here, sometimes limping on superstition. The law may restore balance, but human memory, oh, that's another beast entirely. As evening falls, you sit by a stream, watching fish flash through the current like silver coins. The water murmurs over stones, timeless and indifferent. In its sound, you hear echoes of this place's moral rhythm. Take only what you can repay, give before you must, and keep your hands clean enough to shake another's tomorrow. You close your eyes. Somewhere nearby, a sheep bleats, a baby laughs, and a thief counts the stars he's still allowed to see. Justice, you think, might be slow, but at least it listens. The morning breaks clean and sharp, a thin light washing the valley like new parchment. You walk toward the little turf-roof church that huddles near a stream. The bell, a sheet of beaten bronze hanging from driftwood, gives a dull, holy clank. Today, judgment takes a quieter shape. Church, sanctuary, and new sins. By the late 10th century, Christianity has found its foothold in Iceland, though half the island still keeps old gods in the pantry for emergencies. Inside, the priest murmurs Latin prayers over a case that the all-thing cannot quite settle. A man who struck another during Lent. Once, this would have been a simple assault with a price in butter and silver. Now, it's a sin as well as a crime. The church has its own penalties: fasting, pilgrimage, or public confession. You sit in the back pew, listening to the mixture of voices, monks arguing penance, farmers arguing fairness. It feels like two worlds overlapping: pagan pragmatism and Christian conscience. Historians still argue whether the conversion softened Icelandic justice or merely complicated it. Some claim the church turned punishment inward, teaching guilt instead of exile. Others insist it simply renamed the fines and collected a tithe. A quirky fact: in early Christian Iceland, sanctuary truly meant safety. Step inside a church and even your murderer must pause. The altar rail became an invisible line. Cross it with violence, and you face divine wrath and community disgust. There's a story about a killer chased through the snow who burst into a chapel, fell before the crucifix, and refused to leave for 40 days. When he emerged, thinner and forgiven, his pursuers offered him bread. Outside, you watch villagers pay tithes not in coin, but in sheep, cheese, or woven cloth. The priest blesses each gift, making sure the accounts line up with both heaven and the law. God may forgive, he says, but accounts must balance. You suspect he was an accountant before ordination. The church adds new categories of sin: drunkenness, adultery, neglecting Mass. Yet, for all the sermons, Icelandic Christians never quite abandon their old fairness. A man who confesses early may pay half a fine. One who lies about it owes double. Even divine justice has a sliding scale. In the evening, you stand near the church door as villagers kneel for the short midnight prayer. Their chants drift into the night, blending with the sigh of wind over the moss. You think about how law here keeps evolving, each new belief absorbed, reshaped, never fully erasing what came before. Some say that's the secret of Icelandic endurance. It doesn't replace traditions. It layers them, like lava cooling over older flows. Pagan, Christian, legalist, all fused into a single landscape of conscience. The priest finishes his prayer and smiles faintly at you. The law teaches fear, he says. Faith teaches memory. Between them, we stay honest. You nod, though you're not sure which side you believe more. When the candles gutter out, the valley goes perfectly dark. You can almost feel the boundary between sacred and secular dissolve in the cold air, like two codes of law whispering to each other across centuries. The morning breaks clean and sharp, a thin light washing the valley like new parchment. You walk toward the little turf-roof church that huddles near a stream. The bell, a sheet of beaten bronze hanging from driftwood, gives a dull, holy clank. Today, judgment takes a quieter shape. Church, sanctuary, and new sins. By the late 10th century, Christianity has found its foothold in Iceland, though half the island still keeps old gods in the pantry for emergencies. Inside, the priest murmurs Latin prayers over a case that the all-thing cannot quite settle. A man who struck another during Lent. Once, this would have been a simple assault with a price in butter and silver. Now, it's a sin as well as a crime. The church has its own penalties: fasting, pilgrimage, or public confession. You sit in the back pew, listening to the mixture of voices, monks arguing penance, farmers arguing fairness. It feels like two worlds overlapping: pagan pragmatism and Christian conscience. Historians still argue whether the conversion softened Icelandic justice or merely complicated it. Some claim the church turned punishment inward, teaching guilt instead of exile. Others insist it simply renamed the fines and collected a tithe. A quirky fact: in early Christian Iceland, sanctuary truly meant safety. Step inside a church and even your murderer must pause. The altar rail became an invisible line. Cross it with violence, and you face divine wrath and community disgust. There's a story about a killer chased through the snow who burst into a chapel, fell before the crucifix, and refused to leave for 40 days. When he emerged, thinner and forgiven, his pursuers offered him bread. Outside, you watch villagers pay tithes not in coin, but in sheep, cheese, or woven cloth. The priest blesses each gift, making sure the accounts line up with both heaven and the law. God may forgive, he says, but accounts must balance. You suspect he was an accountant before ordination. The church adds new categories of sin: drunkenness, adultery, neglecting Mass. Yet, for all the sermons, Icelandic Christians never quite abandon their old fairness. A man who confesses early may pay half a fine. One who lies about it owes double. Even divine justice has a sliding scale. In the evening, you stand near the church door as villagers kneel for the short midnight prayer. Their chants drift into the night, blending with the sigh of wind over the moss. You think about how law here keeps evolving. Each new belief absorbed, reshaped, never fully erasing what came before. Some say that's the secret of Icelandic endurance. It doesn't replace traditions. It layers them, like lava cooling over older flows. Pagan, Christian, legalist, all fused into a single landscape of conscience. The priest finishes his prayer and smiles faintly at you. The law teaches fear, he says. Faith teaches memory. Between them, we stay honest. You nod, though you're not sure which side you believe more. When the candles gutter out, the valley goes perfectly dark. You can almost feel the boundary between sacred and secular dissolve in the cold air, like two codes of law whispering to each other across centuries. The morning comes sharp and blue, a thin crust of frost glazing the lava stones. The crowd moves toward a small island in the lake, Holmgang Island they call it, the place where grudges once met their cold conclusion. Today's topic is blood and honor, dueling, holmgang, and bands. You cross the narrow plank bridge and feel the wind cut straight through your cloak. On the flat ground ahead, two men are marking a square with hazel rods. It's an ancient ritual, 12 paces long, 12 wide, just enough for pride and fear to fit together. One man tosses a coin to decide who strikes first. The other loosens his cloak and mutters something that sounds half prayer, half insult. The holmgang was Iceland's formal duel, borrowed from Norway but perfected here. If words and fines failed, the law allowed a duel to decide truth or honor. Each man stood within the hazel circle, bound to stay inside until the matter was settled, or until someone's blood touched the ground. But this isn't chaos, it's regulated chaos, a kind of ritualized honesty. You can't simply stab and run, you have to follow the rules and everyone's watching. Historians still argue whether holmgangs were truly lethal or mostly theatrical. Some claim they often ended after first blood, others that they turned into convenient excuses for murder. Either way, the sagas love them. No tale worth reciting lacks a duel scene, swords flashing under pale light, oaths echoing like thunder. A quirky fact, the loser's property could legally change hands to the victor on the spot. That led to what you might call career duelists, men who challenge wealthy rivals under flimsy pretexts just to seize their estates. One even advertised his dueling services in nearby settlements, like a medieval hitman with a code of honor. You watch the fight unfold. The blades ring once, twice, then one man slips on frost and falls. His opponent pauses, lowers his sword, and steps out of the circle. He doesn't kill him. The crowd exhales, relieved. Nowadays, killing in a holmgang is frowned upon, the laws shifting, slowly banning what it once glorified. You realize you're witnessing the sunset of a tradition, violence fading into memory. By the 11th century, Icelandic assemblies start forbidding holmgangs altogether. The official reason? Too many bodies, too few farms. But there's also fatigue in the air, as though a people accustomed to talk and fines are finally tired of bleeding for their pride. The law now insists that disputes must end in words, not wounds. Later, in a smoky booth, an old man recounts one of the last legal duels, two poets fighting over a woman's honor. The winner wrote an elegy for his fallen rival, then paid his fine in full. That, the old man chuckles, is how Iceland ends a feud, with rhyme and receipts. As you leave the island, ravens perch on the hazel rods, watching in silence. You wonder how many ghosts linger here, how many arguments were resolved by steel because language failed first, and yet you sense a kind of evolution at work. Each generation seems to tame its own violence a little more, turning swords into verses, then verses into laws. The wind lifts your hood as you cross back to the shore. Behind you, the lake mirrors the sky so perfectly that the island looks suspended between worlds. Half reflection, half memory. Perhaps that's where Icelandic justice truly lives, in the space between strength and restraint, where even a duel can end with mercy. You head back toward the main assembly ground, the faint clink of swords fading into laughter and chatter. Peace, it seems, has learned to speak louder than pride. A gray drizzle rolls in from the sea, soft and salty, blurring the horizon into watercolor. The air smells of kelp and wet leather. You make your way toward the coast, where voices rise over the surf. Today's quarrel isn't about honor or marriage. It's about whales, driftwood, and strand rights, the treasures that the ocean sometimes coughs up and humans immediately fight over. You reach the beach just in time to see a massive shape glistening on the sand. A whale easily 30 feet long, its sides heaving weakly. For most of Europe, this would be a tragedy. In Iceland, it's a jackpot. More meat and oil than an entire village can harvest in a month. But the problem is whose jackpot it is. Two farmers are already shouting, each claiming the stranded whale drifted from their boundary stream. "My drift mark runs to that rock," one yells, stabbing a finger at a half-buried boulder. The other fires back. "The tide brings what it wills. The gods chose my shore." The argument gathers an audience fast. This kind of bounty can fund a household for a year. In medieval Iceland, strand rights, ownership of anything washed ashore, were serious business. The Grágás code dedicates whole sections to defining whose coastline counts as whose. Even driftwood, precious in a treeless land, sparked lawsuits that lasted generations. You can see why. Without imported timber, driftwood built homes, boats, even coffins. It was wealth disguised as flotsam. The law speaker, looking weary, arrives with his assistants. They measure the distance between the carcass and the last high tide line, muttering clauses under their breath. The rule is simple. If the whale rests above the ordinary tide mark, it belongs to the landowner. Below it, it's communal. Of course, nobody can agree where ordinary ends and extraordinary begins. Historians still argue whether these strand laws were ecological or economic. Some say they encouraged stewardship of the shorelines, an early version of environmental management. Others say they were just elaborate excuses for neighborly greed. Either way, Iceland's coastline became one long legal chessboard, every boulder and bay a potential courtroom. A quirky detail, the law even covered what happened if a dead whale drifted twice, a rare but real occurrence. If it washed ashore again after being claimed, ownership reverted to the sea unless someone witnessed the drift. Picture a group of farmers running alongside a bloated whale shouting, "I saw it! It's mine again!" Justice here was occasionally absurd, but always thorough. The dispute continues through the afternoon. One farmer offers silver to settle, but the other refuses, declaring, "This whale came to me in God's tide." Finally, a mediator suggests they share the bounty. One takes the blubber, the other the bone. It's not elegant, but it works. A boy begins sharpening knives for the carving, and the smell of oil and salt fills the air. You step back, watching gulls circle above, and can't help noticing how law here feels like a living thing, always improvising, never static. It adapts to lava, wind, and ocean alike. No king decrees it, the island itself dictates its terms. That night, the beach glows with firelight. Men slice great slabs of whale meat while women fill barrels with oil. The two rivals, now sharing ale, laugh about who got the better end of the deal. You think about how, even in conflict, Icelanders find a way to turn quarrels into feasts. Maybe it's survival instinct, or maybe it's wisdom born of too many winters. As the tide creeps back in, you watch waves reclaim what little remains of the whale, smoothing sand over footprints, wiping the slate clean. The sea keeps its rhythm. Humans keep arguing. Both, it seems, are eternal forces. The sea mist lingers through the morning, drifting inland until the valley smells faintly of salt. You hike up a rocky trail where smoke curls from a low shelter built into the hillside. The locals whisper that an outlaw hides there, a man named Hror, who once killed a neighbor in a brawl over grazing rights. No one's seen him in a year, but sometimes when the wind is right, they smell his fire. Tonight you'll learn about outlaws in the wilderness, the ghosts of Icelandic law. You crouch near the mouth of a shallow cave and peer inside. There he is, a thin, bearded man with eyes bright as frostlight. He doesn't seem dangerous, just tired, like someone who's been carrying silence too long. He doesn't speak first, but when he does, his voice is low and steady. You shouldn't be here. You tell him you're only passing through. He chuckles. So am I, just taking longer. Outlawry in Iceland wasn't only a punishment, it was an erasure. When the Althing declared someone útlager, their property was seized, their name struck from all contracts, and any help offered to them became a punishable crime. You couldn't even give them food or shelter without risking a fine. It's civilization's version of disappearing someone, without execution, but with equal finality. Historians still argue whether outlaws really survived long or if sagas exaggerated their longevity. Some believe the famous ones, like Grágás Asmundarson, were composites, folk heroes built from fragments of real men who lasted a few winters before the cold finished the job. Others say these figures were a moral mirror, stories to remind listeners what happens when pride outpaces community. You sit with Hror as he feeds the fire with dry moss. I miss the noise, he says, even arguments. The sound of a door slamming means someone still cares enough to be angry. His words fall like embers. You realize that exile here isn't just physical, it's the slow starvation of being unseen. A quirky fact. Even though helping an outlaw was illegal, Icelandic law required compassion in one small way. No one could kill an outlaw who was asleep. It sounds merciful, but it's really practical. Killing a sleeper was considered cowardly, and cowardice tainted the killer's own honor. So outlaws learned to sleep lightly, half aware of every sound. As the night deepens, you imagine the other outlaws scattered across the island, living in moss caves, fishing in secret coves, trading stolen milk for bread. Sometimes farmers left food on stone fences, pretending it was forgotten. For the birds, as they'd say with a wink. Justice here had loopholes wide enough for kindness to slip through. You recall a tale from the Sturlunga saga, an outlaw so beloved that, when he died, villagers buried him secretly in consecrated ground, defying both church and law. A good man who lost his temper, they said. The law speaker fined them all, then sent a lamb to bless the grave. Icelandic justice always knew when to bend. You ask Hror what he'll do when winter comes. He stares into the fire. If I can reach the mountains, maybe no one will bother me. If I can't, maybe they'll forget me faster. You realize forgetting is the only freedom he has left. At dawn, you leave him, following a trail that winds past black cliffs and silver streams. Every few steps, you glance back, half expecting him to vanish like mist. When the wind rises, the smell of smoke fades. Maybe he's already gone, or maybe he's still out there, another rumor hiding in the hills. In the distance, a raven calls, a sound that feels like a verdict. You walk on, wondering how a society so devoted to memory could also perfect the art of disappearance. The following morning dawns clear and cold. A thin layer of frost traces silver veins along the grass. And from across the plain, you can hear women's voices rising in argument near a booth made of driftwood and turf. You walk toward the sound. It's not about cattle or fences this time. It's about women before the law and the strange, shifting ground they stood on in medieval Iceland. The first thing you notice is how many women are here, not hidden behind men, but arguing, gesturing, taking notes on small bone tablets. One of them, a broad-shouldered widow named Asa, is presenting her claim before the Godi. Her husband died last winter, and his brothers are refusing to release her dowry. That dowry isn't just symbolic, it's survival. It buys hay, butter, firewood. Without it, she and her children starve. The Godi scratches his beard and listens while Asa recites her rights from memory. Icelandic women knew the law as well as men did, sometimes better. In a society where books were rare and oral tradition ruled, knowledge was power you could carry in your head. Asa cites the Grágás clause almost word for word. If a widow is denied her rightful goods, the claim stands for 3 summers, and each delay doubles the shame. The crowd murmurs appreciation. Historians still argue whether Icelandic women were uniquely free or merely less constrained than elsewhere in Europe. Some call the island an early experiment in gender balance. Others say those freedoms were fragile, easily crushed by wealth and reputation. The truth, as usual, lives somewhere between. Women could own property, file lawsuits, and even demand divorce, but only if they had witnesses and luck. A quirky fact: when a woman married, she didn't become her husband's legal property. Instead, they shared household ownership. She brought a dowry, he provided a morgengjöf, a mourning gift given after the wedding night, symbolizing mutual respect. Romantic, perhaps, but in legal terms, it was an insurance policy. Should he mistreat her or die unexpectedly, she kept that gift outright. You watch as Asa wins her case. The Godi orders her husband's brothers to repay her in full, plus an extra cow for insult. She smiles, the kind of smile that makes the crowd cheer. Then she does something unexpected. She publicly offers half the cows to the church for the poor. Reputation restored, justice shared, victory multiplied. You can almost feel the balance tilt toward fairness, if only for an afternoon. Later, you sit beside a group of younger women spinning wool and whispering about the case. One admits she's planning to bring a suit herself. A neighbor's son damaged her loom and refused to compensate. Her friend nods sagely. You'll need witnesses and courage. Mostly courage. You realize these women are teaching each other law the same way they teach weaving, by repetition, by memory, by patience. Not all stories end so well. In the sagas, many female litigants lose not because they're wrong, but because they lack allies. Justice in Iceland, for all its ideals, still leans on social networks. Sometimes the law bows to whoever can gather the loudest supporters at the Althing. Even wisdom needs a chorus. As twilight deepens, you imagine those unsung women, farmers' wives, widows and daughters, who stood up in smoky booths, facing men twice their size, and spoke the words that mattered most. I claim my right. It's both a legal phrase and a prayer. When night falls, the valley glows with small hearth fires. You see Asa again, feeding her children near a pot of simmering broth. The smell of lamb and herbs drifts through the air, humble and comforting. In that warmth, you glimpse what Icelandic law was truly protecting, not property, but possibility. The right to survive with dignity, no matter how cold the world grows. The next day, the sky's a pale blur, the wind thin but constant, one of those days when the entire island hums with quiet restlessness. You follow the crowd to the center of the Althing, where the law speaker sits before a long wooden table carved with runes and tally marks. Today's cases aren't about honor or exile or cows. They're about something much stranger. You're about to discover a truth few medieval societies ever dared to admit. Iceland had no jails. You pause, trying to grasp it. No iron bars, no guards, no locks. Yet the system somehow worked. When a person committed a crime, the punishment came through trust, not walls. Oaths, witnesses, guarantees. These were the bones of Icelandic justice. The law speaker's voice carries through the open air. Let the man who swore falsely stand forth. A tall, pale farmer steps forward. He's accused of lying under oath about a land boundary. There's no forensic evidence, no parchment map, just memories, the word of one neighbor against another. The penalty for perjury isn't imprisonment, but humiliation, loss of all legal standing for 3 years. He'll still live in his home, still tend his fields, but nobody may take his word in any case. In a society built on promises, that's worse than chains. You realize how fragile everything is here. The law depends entirely on people remembering who's trustworthy and who's not. It's an economy of integrity, and reputation is currency. Historians still argue whether this was brilliance or madness. Some say the system thrived because isolation made cooperation necessary. Who needs prisons when winter will punish the dishonest for you? Others believe it was sheer luck, a balancing act that only worked because everyone feared shame more than death. A quirky fact, Iceland did have temporary holding sheds, small turf huts where people could be kept for a day or two until judgment was delivered. But they were more like waiting rooms than prisons. The law had no interest in wasting food or manpower on confinement. Instead, fines, exile, or forced service replaced incarceration. Even murderers, if repentant, could sometimes avoid death by swearing oaths of peace before witnesses and paying restitution through their clan. You watch as another case unfolds. A merchant accused of selling false weights. His punishment? To stand at market holding a sign carved with the word Ligar, liar. The crowd watches in silence as he endures the shame. It lasts only an hour, but the damage will linger for years. You sense a grim wisdom in it. Reputation heals slower than skin. Later, in a nearby booth, a man is accused of injuring another in a tavern brawl. Instead of jail time, he must serve as a laborer on the victim's farm for 3 months. You overhear someone mutter, "Better sweat than rot behind a wall." It's hard to argue with that logic. As the afternoon wanes, you wander to the edge of the assembly plain. From here, you can see the mountains streaked with snow like folded parchment. You think about how a nation this small managed to govern itself with memory, ritual, and trust alone. Law here feels like music, fluid, communal, kept alive by repetition. Stop singing, and the melody dies. A raven lands near you, pecking at something in the grass. You toss it a crumb of bread and think of all those oath swearers and witnesses who carried Icelandic justice on their tongues instead of in their prisons. Maybe that's the secret. If you make justice personal, no one can escape it because it follows you home. The sun dips, casting the fields in amber light. Someone nearby recites an oath aloud, voice trembling but steady. I swear by sky and stone, by sea and spirit, that my word is true. You believe him, if only because the land itself seems to be listening. The final morning of the Althing feels different, lighter somehow, as though the whole valley exhales after holding its breath for a week. Smoke rises from hundreds of extinguished campfires, drifting upward in ribbons. The booths stand half empty now, their walls of turf and sailcloth already being dismantled for the journey home. The murmur of debate has faded into the softer sounds of packing, parting, and quiet reflection. You wander toward the law rock one last time. The Lögsögumadur, the law speaker, stands there surrounded by only a few remaining chieftains and scribes. His voice is hoarse but steady. He's reciting something new, an addition to the law code called Jonsbok, a written collection compiled under Norwegian rule in the 13th century. It's the beginning of the end for Iceland's homegrown justice, and everyone knows it. Once, law lived only in memory and voice. Now it will live on parchment, sealed with foreign wax. The words feel heavier, less alive. The people listening bow their heads, but not all out of reverence. Some mourn what's being lost, the improvisation, the trust, the fragile miracle of a land that governed itself without kings or prisons. You think back over all you've seen, the outlaw in his cave, the widow demanding her dowry, the thief paying with fish, the poet fined for an insult, the duelist spared by mercy. Every case, every voice, every compromise, they were all experiments in survival. Icelandic justice was never perfect, but it was deeply human. It assumed that even the guilty might learn, and that even the righteous might fail. Historians still argue whether Norwegian rule civilized Iceland or simply tamed it. Some say Jonsbok brought consistency and clarity. Others say it drained the warmth from the system, replacing community with bureaucracy. But the truth feels simpler. Iceland grew up. It traded memory for ink, heart for record. And yet, the echo of those old laws still lingers in the landscape. A quirky fact, even today, fragments of Grágás survive in the national consciousness. Modern Icelanders still use phrases from it. Calling someone lawless, luglaus, carries the same quiet weight it did 1,000 years ago. At Thingvellir, tourists stand where outlaws once stood, unaware that beneath their feet lie stones that once divided justice in exile. The law is gone, but the ritual remains. You sit on a rock as the last of the crowd disperses. A child runs past chasing a raven. Somewhere, a woman hums an old verse about peace between neighbors. The land itself seems to listen. You realize Iceland never needed statues or prisons to remember its laws. It carved them into its mountains, whispered them into its winds. The law speaker finishes his recitation. His voice falters, then softens. Let all men keep the peace of this island, as our forebears swore. It's half farewell, half benediction. The crowd answers with a single murmur. So be it. You look around. The lava cliffs, the rivers that split the valley, the wide plain where law and legend met. Everything glows in the low sunlight, and for a fleeting moment, it feels eternal. Iceland's justice may have changed, but its spirit, its stubborn belief in fairness, dialogue, and community refuses to fade. The wind rises, carrying the scent of peat and ash. You pull your cloak tight and smile. The gathering is over, but the story remains. The valley grows quiet now. The fires have burned down to faint orange eyes in the dark, and the last riders have disappeared along the horizon, their cloaks fluttering like ravens' wings. You stay seated at the law rock, feeling the chill settle over the stones. The echo of voices still lingers in the air. Oaths, laughter, verdicts, fading slowly like ripples smoothing across water. The night wraps around you, gentle and absolute. Somewhere in the distance, a waterfall murmurs, steady as breathing. The ground beneath you feels ancient, patient, older than any law or feud. You realize that the stories you've heard tonight of exile, mercy, insult, forgiveness were never really about punishment. They were about balance, about finding a way to stay human in a place where survival depends on cooperation more than conquest. You take a slow breath. The air smells of moss and salt and faint smoke. The stars overhead burn cold and clear. For a moment, the centuries blur. The same sky that watched the old assemblies now watches you. In that stillness, the voices of the past seem to whisper, remember the law, but more importantly, remember the people it served, the ones who forgave, the ones who argued, the ones who simply endured. You close your eyes. The wind hums softly through the cracks of the lava, like a lullaby hummed by the island itself. Sleep comes easy here. The world feels balanced, quiet, lawful in its own strange way. Good night, traveler. May your dreams stay fair and your heart stay steady. End of script. Sweet dreams.